friends. Today we're talking to Bryan Briggs. He is a 30-year music instructor and also has Yes You Can Play Guitar YouTube channel with 27,000 subscribers. That's a great accomplishment, Bryan.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you again. So, as a 30-year music instructor, when did you first have an interest in music and playing guitar?
So when I was a kid, starting to hit puberty there in the early to mid 80s, um, I started to really notice that I started liking music more, although we always had some music in my household. My older brother had a very eclectic taste in music, so his record collection was crazy. So in the 70s, I was like, he was into everything from the Police to Blondie, so like new wave to ZZ Top to uh, all kinds of different stuff. So that was my first foray into that. But then I kind of changed as I was hitting puberty. I started getting into the heavier stuff. So at that time, it would have been like Van Halen, Ozzy, Motley Crue, of course, and then it kind of progressed from there.
Cool. So can you say that those were what your early influences were?
Yeah. So it's kind of a funny long story, but initially, as a musician, when I got into music, I was really into the heavy stuff. So, of course, in the mid 80s, and Metallica came out and this thrash metal thing, and everyone's like, oh my God, what is this? So, I started getting into the heavier and heavier stuff, which was really cool. And for many years, I was a hard rock metal shred dude, but unfortunately, there was not a lot of money in that when you're playing. And in fact, it's very expensive. You always seem to be going out of pocket. So, after many years of that, I sold my soul and I started getting into other genres of music. I studied jazz for a number of years, but I also studied and played a lot of country.
Hmm. Yeah. It's hard for a shredder to play country.
Well, it's a different. I found it was a different school of learning guitar, like just the whole setup for to play live, like your amp, and then your setup using compression, and then using single coil pickups with like it was just a whole different ball of wax. And the way, of course, I'd be pulling out all my major pentatonic licks, but the way they do their bends and everything is very, very different. But it
Mhm.
was really cool. I do like country music. I have a big appreciation for it for sure. But my heart, I'm a metal guy.
Yeah, definitely. So you know that my music and my background and my YouTube channel is kind of going to be focusing on veterans, and
Yeah.
I've been interviewing veterans, and you saw firsthand from when I was taking lessons with you for almost 2 years how my mental health was when I came to see you, and how it was, almost 2 years later. Like, the music helped me huge, and your
Yeah.
instruction and your mentorship and friendship and also helped me. So what I'm asking you right now is, what recommendations would you make for a mature veteran that wanted to learn how to play guitar?
So that's a very interesting question. First and foremost, I have nothing but absolute respect for veterans. I did do a stint in the Naval Reserves when I
Mm-hmm.
was younger, so
Yeah.
I went through basic training, and I have all the respect for the people that give their service and some of the challenges that they face that society might not really understand. So playing guitar and having been a guitar teacher for many decades, I often use this analogy. Everybody's got a guitar. Whatever town you live in, if we went to every house in that town, did a little poll, excuse me, sir, ma'am, is there a guitar in there'd be a guitar in probably 85, 9% of all the homes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not, in 85 or 9% of those homes, there's not good guitar players. And it's for a
Mm.
reason. There's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of, like people think, well, I should do this or do that. And they buy a guitar and, maybe they'll go on YouTube. Now I have a YouTube channel, so I don't want to be a hypocrite. YouTube can be great, but I would tell anyone starting out, make sure you get a decent functional playing guitar, because sometimes I'll see people with lessons and their guitars are less than ideal. They're problematic, they don't stay in tune, or maybe they have a warped neck or really lifted action, which makes it harder to play, which is more discouraging. You want as many positives lined up in a row so you can succeed. But I really do believe that when you start out, having those in-person lessons with a really good
Mm-hmm.
guitar instructor is very important. For the first of all, you need someone in person to say, no, you got to do this, this is what we need to do. um, And just remember, Rome was not built in a day.
Hmm.
And make sure that whatever method you're taking lessons with, that you have a practice plan every week so you know what you're supposed to be practicing, and then you slowly build on that. A lot of people in the beginning, they don't know what the hell they're supposed to do, so they're just kind of
Hmm.
blindly, like, just they don't know, and then before they know it, months and years are going by. And then people tend to rationalize the excuse of saying, it's not an excuse, but people tend to rationalize, like, well, maybe I'm just not meant to play guitar. Well, nobody picks up a guitar and can play like Eddie Van Halen or Eric
Mm.
Clapton or whoever. But it's not that you're not meant to do it, but maybe you're just not learning the proper steps to do it. So I would tell anyone, get a functional guitar that's a decent shape. Get maybe do some research. Make sure you're getting lessons from a good, reputable instructor.
Hmm.
I hate to say this, I hate to be a jerk, but there's a lot of not good guitar teachers out there. Some guitar teachers teach to live, and some live to teach. I always like to refer to myself more as the ones that live to teach. It's something I enjoy doing.
Hmm.
But roll your sleeves up and stay the course. Okay, get into a routine and just say, hey, this is going to take a little bit of commitment. I often tell people it's like trying to get in shape. If you don't know what you're doing and you get a gym membership and you don't know how to train, how to use the equipment, what you should be doing, or how to eat, and you're not going in the right routine, it's not going to happen. So get a good instructor, good functional guitar, and dig up your sleeves and say, this isn't going to happen overnight, but I'm going to just stay the course.
That's great advice. And also, as you mentioned that you do give lessons and you give lessons over Zoom as well.
I do give lessons over Zoom. Yeah. So for anyone who's interested in that or want to talk about rates or to maybe work something out, people can always reach me at my email. Yes, you can play guitar at gmail.com, which I believe you have provided here.
Yes, that's going to be on the end screen after this interview. Yeah, and your socials for your two YouTube channels as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. And I'm really hoping that through this interview and the other interviews that we funnel some people to teach you because, or for you to teach them because you got me over a hump. If
Yeah.
you remember, like there were some humps that I wasn't getting over. And I think one of the first things you said was these are the what was it, 21 chords you need to know or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we got into the scales and just playing methods, and that's helped me immensely.
But never, ever, ever put limitations on yourself. Ever.
That's right.
When I started out for a number of years, I tried to teach myself before I got proper formal direction. I had friends begging me, they'd be like, Bryan, dude, you suck. You'll never be good on guitar. Stick to playing football, stick to lifting weights, stick to hockey, stick to something you're good at. Just please. But I knew in my head I decided I'm going to be good. I just had to figure out how to do it.
And you are an excellent guitar player. So just before we get on to the next question, you were in the contest for the one of the fastest guitar players.
Well, it wasn't a contest. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. I did a thing, I'm going to say 2010, 2011, 2012. Um, I was already a professional musician for years. I would say I was an accomplished guitar player with good technique, but I did this thing. Also, you can insert a little video clip of it here if you want. Where I wanted to really push myself with my practicing, and I wanted to see actually how fast I could do some certain picking exercises. Because I had seen a fellow, his name was Theodore Ziras from Greece, and he was doing this crazy 16th note exercise, and he couldn't quite get it at 300 beats per minute. He's a phenomenal guitar player, by the way. And I remember saying, well, what if I really, really focus, what can I do? And I was able to do it at like 360 or 380. But by that point, there was a lot of, with the internet and everything, there's a lot of people who have just insane technique. But, having great technique is a big part of the puzzle.
Hmm.
But, I like watching people who have great technique, but when you write like a guitar solo, it's like telling a story. You're telling a story within a story.
Hmm.
So you're crafting a story within a story. It's a craft.
Yeah.
When you hear guys and it's just technique for the sake of technique, the whole thing, I don't know, it just kind of um, I don't know. So eventually, like, I don't want my soloing just to sound like a buzz saw. I want it to actually But a lot of the guitar players I love and adore, they have great technique, but they really make it melodic, and they'll use technique but make it fit in telling the
Hmm.
story of a song. Like it's a
Yeah.
story within a story. That's what a guitar solo is.
Hmm. Um, so just to step back a little bit, we're talking about veteran if they wanted to learn how to play guitar. What would you recommend as a decent beginner guitar?
Well, you know, I think a lot of it depends on budget. Now, I know a lot of people that have five and $10,000 guitars, but they're not great players.
Hmm.
And I remember one guy many years ago who was a blues guitar player, and he used a really cheap $130 Jay Tercer guitar when he played live, and he was a great guitar player, and he had great tones. So, um, I think as long as it's within your budget. But one of the big things that a lot of people don't understand is when the guitar is intonated and set up properly. So what I mean by that is people say, "Oh, I went into the music store and I was checking out this guitar and that guitar," and I'm like, "That's great." Or they'll buy it and they'll take it home, and I'm like, "Okay, but you know that they're not really properly set up in a
Hmm.
music store." So like yeah, it's going out of tune, and my bends are kind of weird. So intonation, there's two types of intonation that I explain to people. There's your intonation as a player, how well you stay in tune. So what I'll do often to teach people that is I hook them up into a really big chromatic tuner so they can see if they're in tune or not when they press down the notes. But then there's the guitar intonation, meaning the ability for the guitar to stay in tune with itself as best as possible.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't understand that. So they're playing for years with a guitar that's not properly set up. And it's like the difference is night and day. I had a student, very proud of him. His high school there, a little over a year ago, he did the talent show. He was self-taught and he didn't do very good. And then shortly afterwards, he came to me for lessons and he applied himself. He did what I showed him. But before he did the competition this year, I told him, I said, you need to get that guitar professionally set up.
Hmm.
And he's like, "Oh, yeah, but like I don't understand, and it's hard to explain to my parents why we should spend this money." I'm like, "Dude, listen to me." But anyway, he got it set up. The guitar stayed in tune a lot better. His playing was better, and he won the whole competition. I was very proud of him.
That's awesome. And I think I told you this tale that when I bought a guitar, this is going to be years ago, and I wanted to, one of the many times I was learning to play was with a online game, right? Rocksmith. And
Yeah,
I know I was playing the right chords, the right notes, but it wasn't recognizing it. And it was because I had no idea about intonation. I had no idea about it. I bought the guitar and they didn't do any setup, and it
yep,
was not, even though it would show it was in tune, but the intonation was not right.
yeah. So for my guitars, I take them to an actual luthier, and
Hmm.
and he, it's a little more expensive, but you're getting the best quality job done. And of course, staying on top of the humidity where you store your guitars is very, very important. A lot of people don't understand that. And so then like every year the guitar is like lifted or acting weird and making weird sounds.
You just want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah,
Because that's an important thing that you taught me, and
yeah,
I have mine in my music room here. So,
yeah. So the wood reacts to humidity. So if it's too dry, it dries out the wood and it's going to adjust. And same thing if it gets too humid, the moisture is going to do things to the guitar.
mhm,
So, and it costs money to get the guitar adjusted, intonated. So with my guitars, there's a few of them there. I'm not a guitar collector. I know what I like and what I like to use, and I'm happy with what I have. Plus, I'm really cheap now in my old age, so I don't like spending more money than I have to. But in the wintertime, so we're up here in Canada, and it's very, very, it can get very cold. So we have the heat
mhm,
going. As soon as you turn the heat on, it's going to like dry out all the humidity in the house, and it gets dry. It can damage your guitar. So I often tell people, I said, don't leave your guitar by the fireplace or by a heat vent or whatever. But more so, I have a humidifier that runs during the wintertime, right?
mhm,
And I have what's called a hygrometer, a good one, that tells me what the humidity is. There's a lot of, you have to adjust them, and there's some bad ones, so you need a reference point for them.
mhm,
But and then now we're kind of in the spring. We're in Canada, so the winter, the winter, the weather is just kind of all over the map. But now we're kind of in the spring, and it's really damp. It's raining, so now all of a sudden, and we're not running the heat as much. Now we got all this moisture in the air. So for the spring and summer, I run a dehumidifier. I try and keep my humidity between about 40 and 50%. And for a lot of people, it's a pain in the rear end, but it's worth it. It's like a low maintenance pet. So I check the humidity in the morning and I check the humidity at night before I go to bed. It just saves you a lot of adjustment and repairs on guitars. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff for people that were negligent that way over the years. and they don't take care of it. And then they'll complain to me about the cost of getting repairs done and everything. It's like, well, what do you want, man? You got to take care of it.
Yeah, and that's a point that I'm really glad that you initially brought it up because I didn't know anything about that either,
Yeah,
and you taught it to me, and I have the gauge here in the room, and I have the humidifier in here, and I make sure that every day I check it too when I come
yeah,
in and out of the room. And I've
absolutely.
learned another thing too is I used to keep this door shut in this room. And so it was like a microclimate in here. So my partner bought a gate for the door just to keep the dogs out when I'm not in here. And
Yeah,
so now I leave the door open most of the time. So there's the airflow throughout the house. So
yeah. No, a lot of people don't know that. And then, like my guitars, especially some of them that have a Floyd Rose bridge, which usually are the most tedious to do setups and intonations with. I don't want to get them having to be tinkered with by a luthier every how many guitars? That's getting into a lot of money every year. So I'd rather
yeah,
just stay on top of the humidity, and that's how I do it.
yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah. So what do you see in your future regarding your music career? I know we've talked about this a few times and I've given you some suggestions, but what do you see?
So I relocated to the area where I live. We're in the Western Quebec area. I relocated here about 2 years ago, and I'm 50 years old now. But I made a conscious decision 10 years ago to retire from live performance. I had done so many gigs. In fact, I have some
Yeah.
friends that play in bands. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I know I should get out and see you guys, but I've spent so many weekends, in loud clubs and around a lot of inebriated people spitting in my face. Um, but uh, the playing live in the band thing, I get a lot of people. I had a very well-known musician in this area say to me, he said, "Hey man, like you're really good. I want you to join my band." I'm like, no,
Mm,
I don't play in bands, and I just want to make it clear. Sometimes playing in bands can be great. I've done some good business in bands over the years. I've had some wonderful experiences, but I have a type A personality. I like to get things done, and I like them done a certain way, in a proper way. And I probably didn't always have the best personality to deal with, but I used to always hold people to agreements,
mhm,
especially if my time and money and effort was involved.
exactly.
And if people start breaking agreements or not keeping agreements, I just didn't have the patience or the temper for it. And it's kind of sometimes you can have bands that are great experiences, but also, the wrong band can be like a disordered relationship. So,
Mhm,
if you're with someone who has a lot of personal problems, or they have a disordered partner that's bringing a lot of drama into the situation or affecting business, or I just couldn't tolerate that stuff. So for me, and I also didn't like putting my fate in someone else's hands. So I have a
mhm,
unique personality. I'm not saying that for everyone else. Sometimes playing in bands can be a wonderful experience, but just for my goals and what I wanted, um, I just like doing my own thing. So for me, my own thing is I love teaching. I love teaching guitar. I
mhm,
like having a connection with someone where you can see in their eyes, oh, I get this, and you see the
yeah.
improvement.
Mhm,
Um, I love that. I love playing. I love practicing. I love studying. I like writing my own music for my own YouTube ventures. But as for, like, trying to record hit songs, that was just never for me. And playing in bands, I had some fun. I made some money. I had some good experiences, but I had a lot of bad experiences too.
yeah.
And it's just something now at my age. And I noticed when I was 40, like when you're gigging and you're in your 20s and you're like, oh man, I only got an hour's sleep and I got home at 8 in the morning. You can bounce back from that. You get on in your 20s, get into your 30s, it's like, it's taken me a couple of days to bounce back. And then when you hit 40, you're wrecked for almost the whole week. So now at 50, I'm like, man, I have no desire to do that. I like sleeping in the morning. Well, actually, that's a whole other story. I like to get up early and work out, but I like having my weekends with my partner. I had many weekends playing in bands where they're all booked up for a long time. I like being free and having time with my
Mhm.
partner. I don't even like the word partner. We're not a law firm. She's my fiance.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I just like I just like what I do, but I'm definitely a teacher at heart for sure.
And that I say that after being a student of yours, that boy, you got me moving where I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't
Uh,
for your instruction. And
well,
You know,
Chris, I
I'm thankful
appreciate
for
that.
that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that very much. And you know, I never know how to word this the right way, but there's not a lot of, there are some really good guitar instructors out there. And I'm going
Mhm,
to tell you something, a little inside thing for you and your viewers. So when I tried teaching myself, I had 4 years of just banging my head against the wall. And then I remember just saying, there's got to be something more to this. And my first formal teacher, I've had several teachers over the years, but my first formal teacher was really good, but he was also ethically good. He would show me stuff and he'd be like, you know, I know some of this stuff isn't the most exciting, but I'm going to teach you how to become really good.
mhm.
He could have just took my money, taught me a little bit of a song every time, but people will find very quickly if that's their pattern, they're not going to improve. And it's funny because I introduced my fiance to him. We went out for lunch a couple of months ago. It was just a wonderful time. Still a great guitar player, but he ethically was a good man. And a lot of teachers, they come to a crossroads sometimes when they're teaching, and it's like, I could probably make more money if I just took the person's money and just kind of showed them little bits of songs. I chose a path where I make less money, but I'm honest with people, and I'm like, hey, I'm this is who I am ethically. I want you to be good. I want the best for
Mhm.
everyone that comes to my studio or takes lessons with me. I want the best for them. I truly want to see them improve and do well.
Well, I tell you, like, I took music when I was in high school and that, and I knew what I needed to know then. But when I came to you, I didn't know what I needed to know, and you taught me that, like,
Yeah,
like the theory. Like now, I'm zipping around, and like I didn't know that you had to transpose when you were using a capo. Like, like I'm relating that to playing the bass track, and now I have to transpose what chords I'm playing to be the proper sound on the bass. And I would never have known that if you hadn't taught me those things. And music
yeah.
theory, how important music theory is when you're playing an instrument.
Absolutely. And don't let people who say, oh, theory's stupid, dude. And then you watch their play and go, yeah, okay. I prefer to know what I'm doing.
Exactly. And I think you might remember when I told you that I wanted to teach years ago, some veterans. And after we got to know some chords, like the pentatonic scale, and I was like almost laughed at. Like, why do you want to learn that? Why? Because you need to know it. Like, it's part of the basics, right? So,
Yeah.
um, well, that was very interesting about music. But now I'd like to talk to you about your other YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us what that YouTube channel is and what it's about and what you're doing with that channel? Because I've watched a number of your videos on there too. And although I'm not a beefy guy, it's still very interesting because you talk a lot about nutrition as well.
So I've had two loves in my life, music and guitar, but I was also always a lifter. And I really got into working out at a young age. And I kind of realized I was kind of had a little bit of a genetic gift for it. So now I don't know why, but having my two loves, having them kind of coexist together was always a battle. If I worked on the one more, the other suffered, and vice versa. But anyway, I had some accomplishments as a teenager and in my early 20s. I was a very busy guy in my late 20s and in my 30s and early 40s. I won't get into talking about that too much. But it was a very stressful time. I had a lot of personal stresses on me.
Hmm.
And I got back into lifting in my mid 40s. I took a little bit of a break from music because for many years as an adult, I had a lot of financial stress on me. And I was teaching. I had a crazy teaching. At one point in time, I was helping run a music store. I had a crazy teaching schedule with a lot of students, and I was also gigging 2 or 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's on minimal sleep. Um, so I'm going to say almost around 10 years ago, I had my own music school. We had about 100 students at our peak. I had a few teachers working for me too. And and it was guitar, 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 gigging, gig. So I kind of burned out and I was out of shape. And I'm like, you know what? I need to kind of slow this down. I got back into working out. And before I knew it, I was a sponsored athlete by several companies. I had a bit of a social media following and I was deadlifting well over 700 pounds in my mid to late 40s, which was kind of unusual. And um, it was just kind of unusual. And Chris, part of my life, especially my 40s, it really could be like a Hollywood movie. I don't want to get into
Mm,
that too much today. Um, and I had a couple of turbulent years with that too. And then, as I got back into the music thing, I got very sick with what was going around the world a few years ago, and I had a lot of
mm,
side issues from it, and I got very ill uh, for a lot of things. But I was off the wagon. I started eating. So last year on June 1st, I remember seeing a picture of myself. I was actually getting in the shower, and I saw myself in the mirror. I was like, "Oh my god!" And I stepped on the scale. I was almost 350 pounds. And I said, dude, you're turning 50 in 2 months. You got to do something,
mm.
because if you
Yeah,
don't, there's not a lot of guys that weigh this much that make it too far into their 50s. So having a background with the training and the nutrition and supplementation, hormonal optimization. So I got myself down into the high 260s, and I had a pretty good body composition. And I did that in about 8 months.
that's
And
fantastic.
yeah, so I'm at a point in my life where I can balance working out and health
Hmm.
and the guitar now and music. And so I have a channel called Middle Aged Mind and Muscle. There's a lot of people out there who are very misguided about a lot of things, whether it's working out, nutrition, hormonal optimization. And I'm just like, hey, man, I'm a dude who kind of knows what he's talking about, who's
Hmm.
50.
Yeah,
And so that channel is called Middle Aged Mind and Muscle. It's not for everybody. I have concerns about society, our food industry, our water supply, our,
yeah.
health, like type 2 diabetes. I was borderline type 2 diabetic, but a lot of people just don't know. They don't
Mm,
understand food. They don't understand what's in the food we're eating. The food industry. I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, Chris. We'll
mm.
keep this as clean as we can. But there's a famous saying. I'll tell you though. The famous saying is, when your first half of your life you spend accumulating wealth, the second half of your life you spend your wealth trying to get your health. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of truth to that. So I think, I like anyone else. I've had people I know, as they got older, they got sick, they died.
Yeah,
And, I think it's important that everyone just does kind of wakes up and looks around and goes, like, if I go out to a very busy store, I won't mention any names, and I look at guys that are my age, most of them are overweight. Most of them look very unhealthy. The really pasty, blotchy skin. They're frail. A lot of them, are driving around in those scooters to get
yeah,
the groceries, and they load it up with chips, pop, and chocolate. And
oh
I'm looking at
yeah,
it like, man, like, why do you think you're so sick?
yeah,
Um, so I look around and go, man, like, most men have chronically low testosterone, and it's just, I could get into some conspiracy theories. I think it's not everybody's fault. People just don't know what they don't know. And when you educate yourself on a lot of things, it really makes you open your eyes and go, wow, our society is messed up with health.
yeah. And I've noticed you've addressed a lot of those things on your channel, and I highly recommend people to visit your channel
Yeah.
to hear your insights on a lot of those issues. Because
Yeah, it's not for everybody. I'm pretty like, this is the way I see it,
mhm,
and I know it has offended some people, and that's gotten back to me, even some people in our closer circle here. But it's like, hey, if you don't like it, don't watch it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll end this interview here. Thank you so much for
Oh,
spending time with me today.
my pleasure, Chris.
When I started doing this, yours was the first name I wrote down because not because of your channels or anything, but just because of your knowledge, and I wanted to mine your knowledge to spread it out to veterans and let them know that you are available for online lessons on Zoom, so they can
Absolutely.
tune in from anywhere around the world to do lessons with you. So that'd be great. And all your information is going to be at the end of this video.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.